when you're in pain, soothing as a springtime rain, to have a friend right in your corner, your heart will feel a little warmer. Tender loving care, tender loving care, each warm and friendly touch, let someone know you care so much. Tender loving care, tender loving care.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Greenbrier Almond. Thank you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Each week for some 38 years, we've been talking about an interface between Christianity and medicine. And I have a special guest, backed by popular demand, Jerry Scott. Jerry Scott. And Jerry is heading up a program of Celebrate Recovery at the Cornerstone Community Church. And I asked him to come back again and tell us more about himself. And by telling his story, hopefully it'll inspire someone who's watching tonight.
Yes.
To come out and get into recovery. Now, we did this often when I was, over the years, 42 years in practice, but someone who has been through the trenches, I'm talking like warfare now, they know what war is like, they know what the trenches are like, and they're the ones who can reach out their hand and help someone else. Someone else who's never been there can be easily dismissed as saying that they don't know what they're talking about, and yet the issues of addiction in our community are overwhelming us. I'm sure that we cannot keep jailing people. That's not going to help us. We can't afford it. The state of West Virginia is going to commit millions of dollars to recovery programs in jails. There are going to be 21-day programs in various stripes, and some people are going to benefit from that, but we can't afford that either. We're committing some $400 million in this budget when we're in a deficit just to that alone, and we need to do it. But we need to look back to Christ and to the church,
Yes.
and that's what Celebrate Recovery does from my standpoint. But Jerry, thank you for coming on again.
Thank you for having me.
You're a courageous man. I want to hear more about you as a person and how you got from the miry, muddy pit you were in to up on solid ground.
Started out when I was a kid. I want to start out by saying everything I have to say here is to glorify God and His kingdom of heaven. None of it is to glorify me.
Okay.
Started out when I was a child. My dad, when I was born, I'm 31 years old now. My dad's still in prison. He's pretty much been in prison my whole life. I grew up without a dad. My mom was a drug addict.
Okay.
Drug addicts all in my family. So.
So if there's an addiction gene, you have it.
Yeah, that's for sure. My grandma, my mamaw, she got custody of me when I was a little boy. Me and my older sister, and she did the best she could with us, and she couldn't. I had anger problems as a kid, probably from my parents not being around. I didn't understand. But was I not good enough? Why didn't my mom, at least, why didn't she want me? You know, I had this broken promise after broken promise after broken promise. And so when I was 13 years old, I experienced, started using marijuana and drinking alcohol. And that was the beginning of a 17-year drug battle for me, and alcohol
Now,
battle.
many people who are addicted to substances like that will say that actually they felt normal or they felt better than they ever felt before.
Yeah.
But that's a bad thing when it comes to addictions, isn't it?
That is, and you reach a point in addiction where you don't know who you are no more. I was under the assumption for so long where I didn't believe that I couldn't do nothing. If I wasn't high, not only could I not do it, I didn't want to do nothing. If we was going to take a family trip or something, I had it in my head, well, I got to get so much drugs with what I use. I have to get so much of that before I leave, so I know I can stay high the whole time. Otherwise, I was under the assumption I didn't believe that I could not have no fun and I could not enjoy life if I wasn't high.
How about that?
And that's
Now we are sold that, aren't we, in advertisements, aren't we? You show people having an idyllic little vacation, picnic, and then they're drinking.
You do, and in commercials, movies, music videos today that our kids are watching. They're showing the girls in bikinis and the guys drinking beer and alcohol. What they're not showing is the next day when you wake up and you feel absolutely horrible. You're hungover. You don't remember what you've done. It's one of Satan's number one manipulative tools to me. Is the more intriguing it looks, anything in the world to me, the more intriguing it looks, it's that much worse.
Yeah.
If it looks like it's a lot of fun, it's not. It's a lot of bad is what it is.
Right. They show in a gambling situation. They show the roulette table
they show
and
the
people
table
smiling
and
and laughing.
Fun. They don't show the guy
tell you
when he goes home.
that you have to sell everything you got to Hawk just to take the bus home.
Yeah, when he goes home and he has to tell his wife or his kid that he blew their trust fund and all that. They always leave that part out. But as I was saying, when I was in about 20, 21 years old is when my addictions really started getting bad.
Okay.
I got hooked on OxyContin, prescription pain pills.
Now we've been spending, people who watch this program know perhaps 5 or 6 programs just talking about the opioid addiction in our community. So you got hooked on that. Yeah,
I did. That was my first big addiction. When I was younger, it was mostly drinking and smoking weed, but that was my first big addiction.
Expensive
I had probably like a $300 a week habit.
Wow.
Luckily, I was a functioning drug addict back then, though. I had a good job, and I was able to. At least I thought I was functioning, anyways. But when you're spending $300 a week on pills, you're not functioning.
No, that's right.
And I'm always overdrafting my bank account and. I have a job making $15 an hour, but yet I can't pay rent.
Right. I was trying to, when I was going to medical school, and I wanted to discipline myself. I wanted to, I knew that I was training for medicine and it would require a lot, but I just wanted to live a disciplined lifestyle. And I allowed myself $10 a week for food. And I'd have to buy vegetables and I'd have to, get day-old vegetables even. Things you can do to survive.
Right.
So I know when you say $300 a day or a week, that's a lot of money.
It was. And I had my first child, Jerry Peyton Elijah Scott. I had him when I was 19. And everybody, I thought that there's no way. I was never going to be the dad that my dad was.
Okay.
I was never going to be that dad that wasn't there, that got on drugs, and that's exactly what I became. I became everything I said I was never going to be.
And was the drugs involved in your dad's fall?
It was.
Okay.
My dad's a great person when he's not on drugs. When he's on drugs, he's as we all are. He's a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I went from that. I moved here to Buchanan about almost 9 years ago. When I moved here, I was still hooked on pain pills. That addiction lasted about.
Now, not that we're not placing blame, but did you legitimately get pain medicine, or did you have to buy it on the street?
No, I bought it from dealers.
Okay. So you were not getting it from a doctor?
No, and I was snorting them. That was how I did them. I crushed them up and snorted them.
Okay.
And I moved here about 9 years ago, and I still was addicted to pain pills. And not long after living here, I got off of them, but that's because I traded that addiction for a cocaine addiction.
Okay, yeah.
And
now people generally don't know this, but there's in the brain there's a pleasure center, and it can be triggered by a lot of things. And I have even told people, though they may not believe it, they'll see me out exercising, but I can get a runner's high. Yeah. I mean, you can trigger the pleasure center in the brain in various ways. And sometimes having something like running to do it is a little bit crazy, because you'll run in the snow and in the coldest day there is, but it's a lot healthier than damaging your body,
Yeah,
your liver, and so forth.
Definitely. I'm truly blessed. I know that God always was watching after me, because for my body to hold up through everything I've put it through, it's a miracle that I'm held up as good as I am right now.
They show pictures sometimes in a magazine or on the Facebook or someplace like that. A beautiful woman, and then she got on this, and then she got on that, and on that, and then pretty soon she looks like your grandmother.
Yep.
You know, worst case scenario grandmother. I mean.
And like I said, I got hooked on cocaine. Did that addiction for about 2 years, and then I made one of the biggest mistakes ever. I tried meth.
Uh-oh.
And when I tried meth the first time, for me, I thought, wow, as an addict, that's what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. Then I became a full-fledged meth addict for 5 to 6 years, up until last summer.
Wow, you're very fortunate you didn't have a heart attack or something else happen to you.
Because I would stay up 5-6 days in a row.
Wow.
No sleep, not really eating nothing, not staying hydrated. It's like I said, God knew the big picture, and He knew what He was going to have, what He had in store for me. I didn't know, but He knew. So He was. It's all Him.
Wow. You know, even my wife's a doctor, and she will, with her patients, and she's in retirement now, but she take care of veterans. Some of them would have smoking habits, let's say, and they might smoke a $5 amount of tobacco a day, but she'd lay it out and say, look at that, if you didn't have that habit, you could have a sports car.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 50, you could have a house paid for, and on, you know, and the money flies away, doesn't it, when you have an addiction?
It does. When you have an addiction, I met my wife about 3 years ago, and we got married pretty quick. I'm blessed to also say that I experienced truly love at first sight. The first time I saw my wife, I fell in love with her.
Wow, that's wonderful.
And we got married within 2 months. We was married, but she didn't know who I really was.
Okay.
I kept my meth addiction. I was able to control it, or at least I thought I was, because I was able to keep it from her for the whole first year of our marriage.
How about that? Wow.
And
but yet you were living a lie too.
I was, and I was miserable, and I wasn't allowing her to be as happy as she deserved to be, because if you're not happy yourself or with who you are, you cannot make somebody else happy. It's just impossible. You can't do it. You're just going to drag them down with you, and that's eventually that's what I ended up doing with her. Is I drug her down with me.
Yeah, and often it is a strong woman. I mean, because men are more addicted than women in many cases, though it's catching up. I mean, it's a historic thing. But anyway, the woman has a certain power. She can say, stop, or I leave. I mean, there are controls. Did she have to say those things to you?
Not necessarily. I ended up dragging her down with me, and to the point to where I got her to use with me.
Okay.
And when we didn't have, when the high would start to wear down, I began to get physical.
Oh.
And it's
which is rough. Yeah,
it is. And one night I got a little bit too physical, and but that was the night when she had enough. And during this whole process, I've left out the fact that we've lost custody of our kids. My addiction caused me to lose custody. I
and your wife too, then.
Yes, we had our children took from us because of my addiction.
Yeah.
And finally, she left. And she had enough, and she stayed away for 50-some days before 50-some days before we got back together. And in that time, even after she left, I lost my kids. I lost my wife. I didn't lose them. I chose drugs over them.
Sure.
And I still had to keep on going. Losing my kids, my wife, that still wasn't enough for me. I still had to continue down that path.
Yeah, if there's a bottom, you were certainly almost there.
Yeah, and the way I explained it in my written testimony is I was tiptoeing through hell. Is what I was doing. Once my wife left me for the next 30 days, I was tiptoeing through hell. And I reached a point one day where I knew that either I was either gonna kill myself or I was gonna OD.
Right.
And
Now you were not alone. I mean, you're talking about living in the Buchanan area.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like a peaceful community, but there's a lot of
it's a very dark.
fire, dark side
There's
just under the
a-
surface.
There's a very dark aura around this over this whole community. There is.
You say that in a spiritual sense. That
Yes.
Yeah.
That there's we have a lot of believers in this community, but there is a lot of lost people that's walking in the dark. And the way I say it is, I was a pawn of Satan.
Okay.
I didn't even know it
Yeah.
until I got saved and started following Jesus, and I realized that for all them 17 years, if you're not, you're either serving one or the other.
Okay.
If you're not following Jesus and serving Jesus, you're serving Satan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says in the Bible, you cannot serve two masters. You will either serve one and respect the one, or you will serve the other and hate the other one. You can't serve two. You're either with God or you're with Satan.
Right.
That's it.
Right. And it's becoming clearer and clearer as our society breaks apart.
Yes.
Because I've talked about this for some 38 years. We're going to break apart one way or another, but drugs is probably the way we're going to break apart, because we're not going to have an economy, we're not going to have a trained workforce, we're not going to have family units.
That's right.
And of course, churches, are already emptying out, but all that's dire. But on the horizon, things like Celebrate Recovery.
There is, and as I said, I believe that I was either going to kill myself or I was going to die. I saw my wife one day, and she came to me, and I was a rack of bones. I probably got down to 130 pounds, just
Wow.
out of my mind, skin and bones. I looked like walking death, and she put her arms around me, and I felt how small I was by how she consumed me when she hugged me, and she started
Yeah.
crying, and she said, "Please get help."
Okay.
And
So she loved you even then.
yeah, she did. And the the very next day, I went to rehab.
Okay.
I went to St. Joseph's, and I told them I had to tell them the truth that I was suicidal so I could get help. And
Yeah.
I went to
That's a ticket in. I mean, as a
is.
psychiatrist,
That's what I had.
We know that's good for 5 days or something.
and that was where I was at.
Yeah.
I told them, I said, no matter what, you people are giving me some help. I need help. I said, either I'm going to kill myself if you don't give me help, or I'm going to go home. I'm going to kill somebody else. You're going to give me help. And they did. And I got sent to the Summit Center in Clarksburg,
Okay.
detox facility. My second night in there, I cried out to God. And,
How about that?
I did.
That's good.
And
This is the old United Hospital Center, which is now Highland Hospital,
UHC.
Summit Center.
yeah.
Okay.
And the next day I woke up and I didn't know what was different, but I felt that I just knew that my life was forever changed.
Now, did a pastor come, or did you get a?
No, you see-
how did it happen that you had this spiritual?
This is the thing about it, and this is why I'm so passionate, and
Okay.
and this is why I have such a fire for what I do. I was 30 years old, and I never once had an encounter with another human being where they told me that I needed Jesus.
Even in a community with many churches.
Yeah. God literally broke me down
Wow.
and manifested himself in front of me and said, you're going to cry out to me, and I'm going to hear you, and I'm going to answer you, and I'm going to give you life. A lot of people like to say God saved their life. I don't believe that. I believe that night, Jerry Scott, the drug addict, was put to death. I was crucified. The flesh was crucified that night. And that next morning, Jerry Scott, the follower of Jesus Christ, was born.
So you would understand Paul's Damascus Road experience.
Yeah.
I mean, he was same as a
100%.
murderer,
100%.
and he was blinded and broken, and
Yep.
yeah. So that was that way. Here you are in a
Yeah.
hospital, rehab program,
Yeah.
and
And I'm not going to say I didn't believe in God, but because I blamed him. My spirit just always must have knew. God knew my calling, and my spirit just always knew that there was something. But for all my years of my life, instead of realizing that I was a problem as an adult, I blamed him. You know, and
if you loved me, why did this
Yeah.
go this
or
way?
if you're real, why this, why that, and everything. And like I said, when I cried out to him, I begged him. I said, I can't do this no more. I said, if you will take over,
Yeah.
I will do whatever you want me to do. And I do that. But not only do I do it because he wants me to do it, I do it because I love Jesus, man. This life that he's given me, and this joy with my family. You know, I said I lost custody of my kids. I got my wife back.
Wow.
We got
So
full
you had
custody.
to prove, it's a pretty high hurdle to prove to the Department of Human Services and to counselors and other people that, hey, now you're on the road to recovery.
Yeah, we did that. So went through what we had to do. We got full custody of our son and of our daughter back. Along the way, she got pregnant with twins. We just had the twins.
How about that?
You know, God restored everything. And he's given me this life that I just didn't know existed.
Amazing.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, and from my perspective, having practiced for 42 years, and then feel like I'm like these people who put their hand in the water, and then pull the hand out of the water, and now the water, you know, is there again, but there's apparently nothing has happened. I mean, very busy for a long time, but and using spiritual principles too. But anyway, I was going to say we need many more workers, and God has put you into His army now.
Yes.
And you're on the road to recovery, and you'll be effective. I'm sure you will.
I believe I will be too. And as you said, we need more, you know. And Jesus says, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And that's a big scripture. That means so much to me.
Yeah.
And nowhere in the Bible does it say follow. He doesn't say follow me and come to church. He says follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Our job as Christians, as followers of Jesus, is to be out here discipling.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's where my passion, that's where my fire, that's where my drive for Jesus is to offer the lost salvation that only comes through Jesus Christ, that they need to acknowledge and confess that He is Lord and He is Savior. Their sins will be forgiven and He will save them.
Message worked for you. You're convinced it'll work for other people if
Definitely.
they come out Friday night.
Friday night, Celebrate Recovery, starting at 5:30 every Friday night. Cornerstone Community Church. I'm the minister there. We are blessed to have the support of our pastor John Darnell, who he is an amazing man of God.
Yeah.
Very true good friend of mine as well. Has helped me tremendously.
It might be his grandmother, but I'm not sure the relationship. But Sue Darnell and Tom Darnell.
Tom is Tom's his dad.
His dad. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then there'd be his mother. Then Sue Darnell. Well, there's little Tommy and Big Tommy.
Probably. Yeah. That might be his grandma. But I know his dad's his dad's name is also.
His 95-year-old relative, whatever, was a dear friend of my mother's, and they had. In my home growing up, the Loyal Temperance Legion.
Really?
We would invite little kids to come in on Sunday afternoon, and they would learn temperance songs and Bible stories, and Sue did a lot of that. I mean, just mother and her together, and Sarah Chamberlain. Anyway, there were families where this was the only, I think, a civil moment in these children's lives for that week, because they were living with addicted parents, and but it's an important thing. So I'm not surprised. I mean, historically, getting old myself, that the Darnell family's still involved in doing something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Pastor John. He's a great man. He, like I said about our church before, it's full of very special people, and he's the leader of our church, and he's a very special man. He's on fire for God. He preaches the word like it's supposed to be preached, how God intended for it to be preached, and he treats all of us the way we're supposed to be treated. He's a great man.
Okay. Now, I'm not ever predicting any type of failure here,
Right.
but you have to have an accountability too. I mean, because the drugs are deceiving, aren't they? I mean,
they are.
Over and over again, people, even doctors who have a medical license and they have to stay clean and sober, they might slip 10 years out or something like that.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that will happen, but how does that Celebrate Recovery help you in that?
Celebrate Recovery helps me. It keeps me humble.
Okay.
You know, the people that come in that are addicts at the time, you know, I had to remember, yeah, I am where I am, and it's all because of God. But I also, I can never forget who I was and the struggles that come along with that. Because I struggled with that same stuff, and that's one thing that keeps me humble is the new faces, and that's why I encourage people, please come out. We all need help.
Right.
We do.
Even if you're curious, if you want to see, because it might be, you might come out and say, oh, I have a sister who has a problem, and not acknowledging your own problem, or you know, however you want to present it.
Or if you know somebody who's going with something, going through something, why don't you encourage them and you just bring, you know,
bring them along.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. You never know what you'll experience.
Right. And it's like
God
this,
shows
isn't
up.
it? There's a, if we were driving down the highway and literally there was a bridge that was out, there would be a big sign, danger, stop, bridge out, you know.
Right.
Well, drugs are like that, aren't it?
They are.
Danger. This is a cliff ahead of you. Stop, you know, and don't have to wait 17 years.
That's right. They are ruining the world. And
you know, this opioid thing, just because you got there too, but the United States consumes, and I want to say 95% of the world's opiate.
Wow.
I mean, and we have, you know, 4%, 8% or whatever the population of the world. It's that crazy here because we've been a rich nation and we could afford this. I mean, the Mexicans and others selling it to us aren't doing it for their health.
Right.
They're profiting off of us. And my wife's Filipino. In the Philippines, they don't have the drug problem per se because it's a very poor country. No one wants to give them OxyContin or something.
Right.
But we're in trouble. It may break us as a nation unless this message gets out.
It is, and just as I said, it's all God. And the thing about it is, there's so many more people that just like me too that have the same message, the deliverance of God and what He'll do for us. And we need to start praying. When we pray, you know, we need to start praying not only for ourselves and for our families. We need to start praying for our community. We need to start praying for our state. We need to start praying for our country.
Yes.
We need to start praying for our political leaders. You know, that's a big thing that I wasn't so big on before, but are the people in office who's supposed to be leading us. We need to be praying for them people.
Yeah.
We need to be praying for our nation.
I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
You know, if you have a question, Jerry's open. I'm going to give you the phone number one more time.
You can call me on my own personal cell phone anytime. The number is 304-406-8615.
304-406-8615. 8615.
Yep.
And then you ought to check out Celebrate Recovery out at the Cornerstone Community Church in Tenderton. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, sir.
And this is an open invitation. You come back and you have a message, you have other people you want to share with the community, come back and do this all over again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Until the next time, this is Dr. Greenbrier Allman thanking you for joining us on our program, Tender Loving Care. Special thanks to Channel 3 for this opportunity to come your way each week. And I hope you tune in future programs where we will be dealing with issues which are at that interface between Christianity and medicine. See you next week.
Stories of a West Virginia Doctor, written by Dr. Harold D. Allman. A collection of 55 short stories about his experience as a small-town doctor in central West Virginia. And Tender Loving Care. Stories from a West Virginia Doctor, Volume 2, written by Dr. Greenbrier Allman, using videotapes to write 70 additional stories of his father's very colorful life as a small-town doctor. They can be found for purchase at Amazon.com and most local bookstores. Tune into Channel 3 Buckhannon for Tender Loving Care with Dr. Greenbrier Allman, where he talks about the connection between Christianity and medicine.